Okay, I'd like to call to order the Muskegon County Board of Commissioners Ways and Means Committee meeting for January 11th, 2022 at 3:44 p.m. I would like a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Hughes.
Here.
Commissioner Laring.
Here.
Commissioner Nash.
Here.
Commissioner Pego.
Here.
Chairman Skolnick.
Here.
Commissioner Wilkins.
Here.
Commissioner Seer.
Here. Okay, next item, approval of the agenda. I'd like approval of the agenda, please.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support on that. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Next item is approval of the minutes for December 7th of 2021.
So moved. Support.
Have a motion and support for that. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Say aye. All opposed, nay. Public comment on an agenda item. Is there a public comment on any of the items on this agenda?
I don't see anyone online.
Nobody online. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Budget reports are ready. They're to be placed on file. Items for consideration. First item is WM 22/01-01 to approve payment of the accounts payable of $20,331,620.36, covering the period of November 25th, 2021 through December 16th, 2021 for checks and P cards and EFT payments for the period covering November 1st, 2021 through November 30th, 2021 as presented by the county clerk.
So moved.
Support.
Have a motion and support. Any questions, comments, or concerns on this item?
I do have one question.
Yes, go
And
ahead.
this may be for Mark. Did we order 5 transit buses? Did we approve ordering 5 transit buses?
I think early last year.
Because, we've been talking about making them an authority for a long time. It just seems like I don't remember authorizing $2,400,000 for new transit buses.
Yeah, I can bring I'll look it up for you. And let you know
Okay,
when
thank
that was done.
It says board approved contract. I just don't remember doing it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner
that
Small.
was done a long time ago. That's all federal grant money. I understand what you're saying, but that was,
Okay.
it's a long process to buy one of them.
Might have been 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Concerns? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Laring.
Yes.
Commissioner Nash.
Yes.
Commissioner Pego.
No.
Chairman Skolnick.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner Seer.
Yes.
That's 7 yes, 1 no.
So, thank you. Next item is WM 22/01-02 to approve the amended County of Muskegon financial policies.
Support.
Have a motion and support. Any questions, comments, or concerns on this item?
I do have a comment.
Yes. Go ahead.
I'd just like to say thank you, Angela, for all the work she put into this and how much, time it took. I appreciate that.
Any other questions? Hearing none. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Does
Commissioner.
Angie want to give just a brief summary for anybody online or anybody watching if they have a question, just a brief explanation of what the changes were? It may be beneficial to other folks.
Angela Machesky, Finance Director. There are some very simple changes to the financial policies just designed to make things run a little bit smoother and easier. The biggest change for the policies was the board held check policy. So with the old policy, we would bring this motion. This is the motion that you just passed, the first motion on the list. Every Ways and Means to approve all the accounts payable. These items are all approved in other methods. So this is just duplicating efforts. So we're just eliminating that, helping things to flow a little more smoothly. The second change in here is just clarifying some wording in the policy to make things a little more clear. One thing in particular was that the non-reoccurring revenues policy was very ambiguous and unclear. There are a lot of things that can fall into that category of non-reoccurring. So we just cleaned up a little bit of the language in here to make it more specific to what the intention of the policy was. Another slight change here is giving the administrator the ability to have to transfer budget in between funds and across the general ledger to make things a little bit easier for us from a logistical standpoint. This doesn't give him the authority to increase the budget for anything. The budget is approved by the board with the appropriation ordinance, usually in the last board meeting in September. So any changes or additions to that appropriation would still have to come back to the board. This just gives us a little bit more flexibility internally to move funds around when we're dealing with things like grants or labor distributions for employees to be able to maximize grants. And then the last thing on the item was the capitalization policy that we are increasing. Current policy capitalizes assets at $5,000. In today's terms, that's a lot of items that we have to scan through the ledger and find. So after consulting with our year-end audit partner that helps us get the ledger ready for the audit cycle, he suggested we increase that to $25,000. So that will just create a little less year-end work for us to comb through the ledger and find a lot of small items that don't necessarily have any impact to our financial statements in capitalizing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, do I need a roll call on this? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Laring,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pago,
Yes.
Chairman Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Seer,
Yes,
8 yes.
thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
can I ask Angie a question again? It wouldn't change my vote, but
Okay.
just about the amount that we're capitalizing. Angie, you know, in a normal business, when you capitalize something over a number of years, doesn't it have an impact on the bottom line?
The result of capitalizing is to take in and spread the expense of that item over several years. So for instance, if you bought a vehicle, you wouldn't want the expenses to hit your bottom line all in the same year because you're going to have that over several years. So it just spreads that expense instead of being in the year you bought it over several years.
So if we bought a vehicle for $50,000 and was capitalized over 5 years, then it would show up at 10,000 years in expense as opposed to 50,000 in 1 year.
Correct.
Okay, but if this isn't a for-profit business, so it doesn't make any difference.
It really doesn't. Most of our, outside of enterprise funds, we expense for our financial statements in the current year in any kind of general fund or special revenue fund.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next item, WM 22/01-03. That is to establish a balanced budget of $308,100 for the Raise the Age program and to approve labor distribution changes accordingly.
So move. Support.
I have a motion and support. Do we have any questions, comments, or concerns on this item? Yes, Commissioner Nash.
I guess I'm wondering why this is coming under Angela, not the court. What's the plan for this?
This is just a grant that the court has received recently. They are able to accept the grant. This motion is just to adjust the budget so that we can move these funds into their appropriate special revenue fund.
Okay. Sandra, could you tell me what's the plan for this money?
Absolutely. Sandra Van Circuit Court Administrator. As you all recall, as of October 1st, 2021, 17-year-olds moved from the jurisdiction of district court from adult court to the juvenile court. And with that, they gave us childcare funding that covers 100% of all 17-year-olds expenses. but there's some things that aren't covered by the childcare fund. So this grant was mainly provided to us to be able to cover some of those expenses. So for this year, we have the $300,000 to spend on any raise the age funds that we incur that are not childcare fund eligible.
So what do you plan to spend this on?
So one example is we are using it to fund to get some new doors at the JTC. The doors that we have, they're not as secure, and knowing that we're going to have older, stronger youth in our facility, we are changing out our doors. That's one of the projects that we're currently working on.
That's 300,000?
That is one of them. So what we're also able to do is there's childcare fund has said that things like snow removal at the JTC, that's never childcare fund eligible. So it's another thing that we're able to just put in this grant this year. Administrative costs, we're not allowed to run administrative costs. So like our juvenile clerks, for example, we typically can't run them through the childcare fund, but we can now put some of their salary in this particular
Can
grant.
we find a way to use this money to help the youth
So all,
instead of just spending it?
so those are things that are eligible under childcare fund. So that's why we don't need to put those in this grant. So we have plenty of services for our youth, and we're always expanding and looking to improve those services, but those don't need to be ran through this grant. This is only things that aren't child care fund eligible, which all those services are.
Okay.
I have a question too. I just wondered, it says costs that are considered non-reimbursable in the child care fund budget. What would some of those be? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so one is like that snow removal.
Okay.
Also, anything that a lot of our technology related expenses are not child care fund eligible.
And Charles is right in that situation. That could eat up the grant and none of it goes to kids.
So the things that go to the kids, that's child care fund eligible. So we're doing those things, but I don't need to run them through this grant because they're paid by another funding source, if that makes sense.
I think this is what I'm trying to say, and I think we're saying the same thing. The snow is fine, but isn't the snow getting done now? I mean, it hasn't been getting done for years. So, let's find something indirectly that'll help the youth. That's what it's for. I'm just saying we gotta stop hiding this stuff and start doing some good with it. I mean, just doing the same old is not gonna help those youth.
Oh, we have a huge plan of what we're doing with the raise age, because these are youth that are transitioning into adulthood. So we are giving them unique services. But like I said, those just aren't going to show up in this grant because I have them paid for by other areas. So we are being creative, but what can be covered by this grant is just a very small portion of things, because most of them are eligible under the child care fund.
I have another question too. Sandra, this says that it is also recommended that the attached labor distribution charges be approved, which will reduce the fiscal year 2022 general fund budget labor costs by approximately $36,000. I don't see how that helps the kids either.
So one of the examples that I had mentioned is some of our administrative costs for our juvenile clerks. Also in the child care fund, they cover our intensive probation officers. Those are the ones that do our intensive probation. They can only have 20 youth on their caseload. But for whatever reason, child care fund decided that they don't cover regular formal probation officers. So our formal probation officer is going to be able to be paid for by this grant.
Then how are you saving $36,000?
Because by putting that person through this grant, we get to decrease the overall budget impact from the child care fund. Because the child care fund is split up 50-50. But right now, in the child care fund, if they're working with 17-year-olds, it's paid for 100%.
I see.
So that's why it's decreasing the overall budget.
I got it. Okay.
Great questions.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
I have
Oh,
another
wait,
question.
wait.
Well, can I-
Go ahead, Commissioner.
How come you put this under finance instead of childcare stuff?
Because, and this is very interesting, a lot of our grants are just renewal grants, but because Raise Age is new, this is new. So Angela needs a place to stick it in the budget since it didn't exist before. So really all she's asking you is, can I stick this in the budget? It's all grant funds, but she just needs a place to put it, and that's why Board of Commissioner approval is needed.
Okay.
Okay, got a roll call, vote, please.
Commissioner Nash,
No.
Commissioner Pego,
Yes.
Chairman Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Leering,
Yes.
Commissioner Seer,
Yes,
7 yes, 1 no.
thank you. Next item is WM 22/01-04 to approve the purchase of a pivot point software at $24,351.71 as a sole source and 8 iPads for $6,279.84 with a data plan from the My Deal agreement with Verizon and adjust the budget accordingly.
Support.
A motion and support. Questions, comments, or concerns on this item? Anybody?
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Sure.
I'd like to, where does this fit into the general fund and the general fund balance reserves?
So I can answer that. This would come out of the unassigned fund balance that we have earmarked at the end of the year when we talked about our budget cycle. Equalization came in under budget for fiscal 21. So this would be coming out of that fund.
But it says non-budgeted, so it's still under their allotment that they.
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Angie, I got a question for you. It used to be so that if the departments saved any money, they didn't get to roll the money over. Is this actually money that rolled over?
It
into
is.
this year? That's what I thought.
Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to, in my mind, to
That's good.
understand, to make sure that it's working, and that's what
It
it
is
is.
working.
So thank you, thank you.
Commissioner Pagel?
What department are these going to? How are they being used?
Equalization, Donna's.
Equalization, okay. Is it replacing something or are they just new? Or what are they using now? Like for,
Rhonda Vanderbreeze, Muskegon County Equalization Director. We aren't using them now. We're using consultant paper when we do our fill work and Canvas. And it's gonna be way more efficient because you use iPad, you can upload when you go back in the office. We have 12 assessing contracts. There's one that's gonna likely come available this year because the assessor told me she was retiring. We're supposed to look at 20% of the property, but it'll be way more efficient. I know they're used throughout the state. Oceana County, Ottawa, a lot of assessment units because of the efficiency, the greater efficiency, and hopefully discovering lost or owned the property and greater tax revenue as a result.
thank you, Donna.
Welcome.
Commissioner Skolnick, or Chair Skolnick, excuse me.
Donna, I've had this question for years, and I don't know that I've ever gotten a satisfactory answer. Okay, so there's thousands of parcels in the county, right?
Correct. About 90,000.
So could somebody delete one of those?
You can't just delete a parcel.
No, I'm asking, is that possible? I mean, how do you prevent that from happening?
We have, between the equalization report and assessing reports, you started out with last year's beginning and you have to match up your parcel counts and everything else. The assessment will, I always like to think of it in accounting terms. It's like a balance sheet. You have a beginning balance, additions, losses, and then your ending balance. So it's kind of like a balance sheet, and parcels can get combined and all that, but we track the parcels too. I mean, mistakes can happen, I know, but we have to balance and we have to submit the same, our beginning balance has to be last year's ending balance.
I don't know, it's just something I've been wondering about, because I don't know who has the power to do that.
That only happens in metaverse.
Thank you, Charles. I was waiting. I'm like, what?
Okay, it can't happen though, right? I mean,
Well, it shouldn't happen. I have never seen it happen in my years of experience.
Thank you, Donna. Any other questions? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Pego,
Yes,
Chairman Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Leering,
No,
Commissioner Nash,
Yes. Commissioner
Commissioner Seer,
Yes,
7 yes, 1 no.
thank you. All right, the next item is unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business to come to the floor? Hearing none, new business. Is there any new business? Hearing none, public comment. Is there any public comment at this time?
See any online?
None online? Okay, no public comment. Final board comment. Is there any final board? Yes, Chair Spalding, go ahead.
Well, I noticed that Angie was the one who brought forward this raise the age program. I think we need to lower the age program. I'd like to be 62 again.
We're not miracle workers.
It's not gonna happen. Okay, any other final board comment?
I'll refrain.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We really appreciate
You're
it.
welcome, everybody.
Mhm. Okay, no more final board comment. You're adjourned.